And we're back. There had a bit of a problem though with my internet, but we're back, good to go, and we'll just continue like it didn't happen. So the last kind of piece of news we have this week is just another season two announcement. Um, Overlord season two was announced. It's going to be in the winter season, 2018. So we're just, you know, just 13 weeks away or something from that. Just got to get through this season, and you'll have Overlord season two.
Oh, I was thinking it'd be next year. That's awesome.
No, winter. Yeah, winter 2018. That's the first season of the year because we're in fall right now. We're going into fall.
Well, I'm pretty excited about that then.
So I think, and now that you maybe kind of doubt that, but I'm pretty much 99.9% sure that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm looking at the winter 18. That's right after fall 17. So
Yeah. Okay, so I guess now we'll get into kind of the main event of the show here tonight, where we're gonna get into talking about kind of the season finales, kind of the shows that we just aired this last season, our top shows for the season and everything. So how do you kind of want to do this? Because I thought about it. Do you want to do our top shows first, and then do you want to talk about finales? Do you want to talk about finales and then do the top shows?
I say let's just go with talk about the shows and then the finales, like at the same time. So
You want to do our top? So if you want to like do our top shows and talk about them, and then after we're done with that, just talk about like other finales for shows we didn't pick.
now let's go the opposite.
Okay, so talk about shows we didn't pick. Okay. So I guess we should say that obviously, like most people, we did not watch every show. In fact, unfortunately, this was a season where I didn't get around to even. I don't know. I watched a good amount, but not as much as I usually do. So I mean, some of the shows that you're saying, like, why didn't they pick them as the top shows? Why aren't they talking about these? Either we,
Because they should.
either we're deciding to not talk about them because they're shit, like he said, or we just didn't see them. I guess you'll never know which one it is.
And yep, we're gonna talk about my first girlfriend was a gal. So
So I guess we should start with ultimately what did of the shows that we watched, which one did you think was the worst one, and why was it the worst one?
I just said it. Definitely my least favorite one. That girlfriend was a gal.
Hmm.
I should have known better, or there should have been all kinds of red flags there. But for some reason, and I literally have spent the last week just sitting there trying to figure out why I did it. I cannot tell you why I watched all of it. It was about episode 6. I decided I literally hated everything about that show.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I was actually a fan of that show. We've talked about that quite a bit there, and
So I think that's an issue that's going to come up with this because I might be in the bottom of your list. I might enjoy it, vice versa.
hmm. Well, yeah, well, I was a big fan of that show. I don't not really sure what your problem with it was, but I mean, I remember like right from the first episode, you were already making complaints.
I just the MC, the main character, was just unlikable,
Hmm.
completely unlikable. Everything about that show just centered around being cringy.
Well, I was a big fan of most of his friends. I mean, I thought that they were generally very relatable.
I
Not the pedophile.
and I think that one has to be discussed when talking about this show because
I have to clarify. Not I do not relate with the pedophile. However, in the last episode, he was pretty heroic with his hulking out and saving the day.
I was okay. So when I watched that, and maybe okay, maybe this is something I completely missed when watching anime. But I was reading something, a manga called I think Watakami. Some is my wife, right? And they have a character that's similar to that, and they are completely playing it as if though it's comedy. I'm starting to think that this is a lot more happens more often in these shows than I realized. But there's this cringy, just obnoxious character that's a pedophile, and it's absolutely horrible.
He did, well, I mean, if that was something that was like serious, I could see that as being over the top. But I mean, it was he was pretty funny with it sometimes. There was a couple times where I will agree it got uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But the last episode was not one of those moments.
I hated him for the reasons I hated all the other characters at that point. Like,
Hmm.
I was sure when I started watching it that this was like going to be turn out to be satire or something. Like, this is what people joke about. This is how people justify this. You find it funny yet? Is this funny? And they just kept going with it. And it, that last episode where they make him save the day. I mean,
One of my problems with it was all the censoring. And I know censoring happens. I know that it has to happen. And on like DVDs for these shows, they're not censored. But I thought some of the time there was censors where there didn't have to be. Like sometimes when it would like just be showing panties or something, and it would just, you'd have the big like diamond censor gem. I
I
loved
like the censoring
I,
of this. It was hilarious.
I loved that one scene with the censoring. I can't remember what was happening, but I remember like a lot of the girls were like naked, and the giant hands kept coming out and going away. Like they weren't even trying to hide it with like blinding lights or anything. It was just like giant hands coming onto the screen to block off the different sections. Um,
If you're gonna do it, I say go for it.
but
Make it funny as possible.
I didn't have any problem with the main character in that show. I didn't have any problem with the main chick in that show. Her friend was a little on the dominant side. I don't think I could handle that there, the Ronco. But I don't know. I liked that show. We're on different ends of that. It will not be on my top 5 later. I guarantee that. Obviously, since we're actually you're talking about it now, so it could still be on mine. But it won't be on my top 5. I'll guarantee that. My least favorite show that I watched, I was actually surprised that it was the worst show. It was actually, in many ways, a piece of shit. Like, oh god, like it had like no like, oh god, In Another World with My Smartphone.
I'm glad you said something because that is on my list to watch.
I was excited for that show, and the story, it had no story. Like, it went nowhere. And I know in a lot of these shows there's no story, but usually that's fine because it's like, oh, this show's funny, or they got a lot of like funny, interesting situations going on. Not so, not so in this show. And I have no problem with this, but I'm sure a lot of people would have a problem with this. He's the most OP character of all time. Like,
And why is that?
any problem he runs into. See, basically, the premise of the show is God accidentally kills him. So to make up for this, God lets him be alive again in another world, and to make up for this, he'll give him certain benefits. So this world, for instance, has different kinds of magic, and everybody in the world is attuned to like one of the kinds of magic, and they can't really do anything else. He, however, is not only attuned with every kind of magic in the world, but he's an automatic master of it. And then he's got all these like super apps on his smartphone. So there's no situation in that show that he doesn't run into that he just like pushes a couple button on his phone or say a spell name and the problem's over. It's basically a huge harem show, which I like harem shows, but this one I did not. Like, I pushed through this show, I think, simply because I was originally excited about it, and I guess I just always hoped it would go somewhere. I don't know. In the last couple episodes, it kind of gave like a seeming hints of maybe a main story, but I didn't get to it. It seemed like in the second to last episode, for instance, it seemed like they were getting at a main story, and then in the last episode, it was like they forgot completely about it. Wh-
sounds absolutely horrible.
what I think you would be interested in, though, is one of the reasons you say you don't like harem shows is because there's no winner.
Yeah, I just
And it
I'm
just,
okay. I'm okay as long as the harem isn't the main part of the story.
and it just, well, you know, you say a lot of these series, like the seasons, usually just end open ended, and you never really know which girl gets him.
I mean, I know
Well,
my
in
favorite one is the one that wins, but
in this show, the final 2 episodes consist of 4 different girls confessing to him and saying, you know, they want to be his wife and everything. So, however, they all win. He decides that all 4 of them can be his wife, and they're all completely cool with this.
okay.
So, that's the entire last episode is just him like mulling over what he's going to do about the 4 girls asking him to marry him. So that was my least favorite show that I watched the whole season there.
I definitely think you're gonna have to keep going down the list. Like every other like third one I'll be on. Yeah, I'm sure. How many have you seen?
Well, a decent amount, but I think that I don't really want to get into talking about all of them. I mean, Dive, for instance, I thought was pretty good. I always liked the sports shows. It was kind of like Dive to me was kind of like a mix between kind of a usual sports show, but also with like some drama and everything, in the way that Free is, and I love Free. But Dive just never quite got to like a masterpiece level. I also watched. Um, I also watched Welcome to the to the Dance Floor. I think that was. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank, but you know what show I'm talking about, right?
The ballroom
Welcome to the Ballroom. Welcome to the Ballroom. I watched that, and a lot of people had a problem with that show because they thought it would be like the next Yuri on Ice and everything. And like Yuri on Ice had the real heavily animated ice skating routines. So everybody thought, "Welcome to the Ballroom, here we go." But they weren't. It was a lot of stills for the dancing. Also, the thing that bothered me was every character in that show looked creepy as fuck when they were dancing. They were supposed to like look elegant and everything, but I thought it was creepy shit. Like I wouldn't want to run into any of those motherfuckers that were dancing in an alley. Like it, it was creepy shit.
If you're gonna animate people dancing, like, should they take real people and then kind of animate over it? Or?
No, but I mean, they was really like I wouldn't say they're stills, but it definitely wasn't what people wanted as far as the animation went for the dancing.
That's a shame. You would think a show like that they would put a lot of stock into making sure that dancing looked great.
And there was a few other shows that I wanted to watch that I didn't watch. That I mean, as always, like shows that aren't this season. I watch One Piece every week, Detective Conan every week, Dragon Ball Super every week. So I mean, there's lots of good shows I still watch, and we're just not talking about them because
Well,
they're not really.
that's one of my shows.
Oh, well, no. I mean, for a show to be the top of the list, it has to either okay, it doesn't have to start this season, but it has to like end this season, So it could have been from like last season, because it could be like a 24 episode show.
I just assume that because if not, then that's like two of my shows.
Well, we'll just let you do it, and then we'll be more stricter. No, if it's like a season, no, the season. If it's a season, and like the season started this season or last season, that's fine. I'm not saying it has to be the first season of a show.
I'm just gonna come out and say it. The one that I'm questioning is
Boruto.
Would that be considered? Would that be considered this season?
I think it was last season because it didn't end this season. I think it'd be acceptable for like an end of the year thing when we're talking about the shows of the year. But we'll just, I mean, that's the show you have. We'll do it, and then at the end of the year, we'll just all have more stricter rules, I guess, at the end of the year. 'Cause, I mean, we're just trying to talk about good shows, really, in the end. So I mean, you want to tell people about a good show? That's fine. Like, there's nothing ultimately wrong with that.
Well, I mean, that could be one of my shows that I hated this year too.
Oh, did you hate Boruto?
I mean, no,
Oh, yeah.
I actually really liked it.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. I thought it kind of brought Boruto brings back kind of more the feel of the original Naruto series there,
Yeah.
and I think it would really make people like it again that had stopped liking it because of the later Shippuden stuff.
Should we just talk about it now since we've already started?
Well, we can do more at the end of the year, especially since I'm behind on that,
Oh,
or
okay, I got you.
starting next week when we talk about the episodes and stuff. If we want to talk about what happens in the episode and stuff, I think that's cool.
Okay, so I had 8 shows, but if we're moving that pen down to
H. Oh, well, I thought you meant for your top. I was thinking like we're doing a top five. What? Anyway, do you want to talk about? You want to talk about some more shows? I talked about a couple. When you get down to five though, let's start like announcing them as your top five as you go.
I mean, I only have one other show that
Well, that's fine then. Let's talk about that and then we'll do the top five.
so the next one is A Centaur's Life.
Okay.
So again, I think that's a show that's probably higher up on your list than it is mine.
I won't confirm or deny.
So here's the thing about my opinion on the show. Right? I don't hate it. Right? I think it's paced very weird. I think there are moments that are very weird. But overall, I enjoyed it nonetheless.
Well, ultimately, even though it's about monster girls and stuff, I mean, in the end, I don't really have a thing with the pacing because it's kind of like it's like a slice of life comedy.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Because, like the last episode, really great episode, has all the elements of slice of life. They do the arm wrestling. I forget the other thing that they do in the episode, but
The RPG. It was a lot like the first episode where they were doing the play.
yeah, I'm okay with that stuff. It was pretty good. But then you get moments in that show where they're trying really hard to like hint at this greater thing, at this equality thing and at this harsh, dark world behind, all of this stuff.
Which I think
I don't.
I think they addressed just fine at some point.
Well, we're talking about the Holocaust episode, right?
Well, I think the show would have been weird if it was like a depressing equal rights show. It wouldn't have been the same show.
Well, I mean, it was all about it. It was all about normalizing it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not against that, right? I don't want anybody to misunderstand. I'm not against that. I'm not against the Holocaust. But I just think it was weird that they waited to episode 9 to drag that out. Not drag out. That's a horrible way to say it. To bring it out. Some like that. If you want to start hinting at stuff like that, put it closer to the beginning.
One of the things I liked about that show though is how it was like it was like a copy of our world, but all the little subtle differences for little things like the way the toilets were and the way the centaurs drove cars and just all the little tiny like subtle different changes in the world like BoJack Horseman, all their kind of creative things for the different animal species, all the kind of things they had in Centaur's life. I really liked a lot of that.
And I thought that was interesting when they explore stuff like that. Like, I think there's an episode where they're showing the difference between the water people and the, land people.
Where they go to the
I
school.
like that
Yeah.
stuff. I think there was an episode later in the season back to it.
Oh, you're talking about like the Antarcticans.
It's possible.
Like,
No, the Antarcticans, the snake.
yeah, the snake people. Yeah.
I mean, again, I did like that part too.
Yeah. Well, and of course, one of my other favorite things about the show, I think I don't know what my favorite episode is, but one of my favorite episodes was definitely, I think it was the second to last episode. Though it was like the episode that was all about the school president's little sisters.
No, the triplets.
I'm a big fan of the cute girls doing cute things. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm a big fan of the cute girls doing cute things genre, and that we have a category at the end of the year for like the top like Mo things or whatever. That's a strong contender for number one for me. Is that girl's little sisters? They are all amazing.
So, okay, the sister, the school president, the class president, she's supposed to be a pigeon?
Well, she's got the halo. I mean,
Yeah, but, like, her hair is gray.
I don't know. I don't. Do they ever really get into what she is? Like, we never see what her mom is. I don't think.
Yeah, and then it gets even confusing with the younger sister, because she's like half cat, half, pigeon.
I don't know what they are, but they're fucking amazing. That's all. That's all I can say on that one. Okay, so I mean, we'll find out where that is on my list. You guessed it was higher than yours. We'll find out where it lies. But I guess we'll start with the top series then. We've come down to it. So you want to do yours first here,
I'm surprised you didn't have more.
starting at number 5 here.
Yeah, I can do that. Number 5 for me is Owl.
Okay.
A-H-O.
Like Aho girl or Ow girl or however you pronounce it. Pronunciation is not our show's top quality.
Yeah, that's putting it very nicely. Yeah, so it's a show about, it's a comedy show. It's shorts. I think there's like 15-minute episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen it?
I have not. The only short series I watched is, as I always watch, is Japanese ghost stories.
Okay. So it's a comedy show where the main character, she's an idiot, right? She's just downright stupid. And the main guy character, they're like childhood friends, but he absolutely despises her. So the show takes place around her wacky adventures and trying to seduce him, right? She's
Yeah.
trying to get married to him because she doesn't have a future otherwise.
Okay.
So it leads to a lot of great moments. Definitely one of the funnier ones I've seen this season.
Well, I'm sure I'll be checking out all the ones on your top 5 that aren't on my top 5.
Yeah.
If I would have guessed your top 5, I wouldn't have guessed that show. I don't know why I wouldn't have guessed you watched it. I have no idea. My top 5 is probably a lot easier to guess than your top 5, though.
I'm just assuming it's all going to be like junk.
Except for your number one's probably not hard to guess, but we'll keep. Okay, so number 4. Actually, you know what? I'll do my
Don't you have a number 5?
I'll do my number 5. Yeah, I'll do my number 5, and then we'll go like that. So my number 5 is Aoyama is a clean freak,
I had a feeling that would be my top 5.
which was great. We talked about once how it kind of had that Aoyama, how the whole vibe of the show kind of has that Sakamoto, haven't you heard I'm Sakamoto feel to it, which I know you hated, but I loved to no end. And this show really had that feel to it. It even had like the guys that didn't like Sakamoto, and that show it had the guys that didn't like Aoyama. One of my favorite episodes is one of the guys that hates him the most is like a successful manga writer, and the whole episode's about him putting Aoyama like a kind of something inspired by Aoyama in his manga as like a villain, and trying to just make people hate him as a villain in the manga, but no matter what he does, everybody just loves it, and I don't know. There was just so many great things about that show. The main girl in that show is just so awesome. Um, it's kind of if you look at it, it looks like it's supposed to be like a soccer show, but there's not really a lot of soccer in it. It really has that haven't you heard of Sakamoto comedy feel to it. It's to me it was like having another season of that. Like I just loved it. Um, Also, it's kind of relatable. The kind of OCD stuff he has. Of course, I'm glad I'm not anywhere near that, and that mine has nothing to do with being clean, but it's kind of relatable. I don't.
It is on my list.
There's a whole episode where someone's trying to figure out if he's this character they know in an MMO game, and then you find out that he plays MMOs because he gets to be without his OCD in the game because he doesn't have to worry about his character touching things and everything. So that was an interesting episode. I don't know. It's really good. It's a really good show. It's only 5 though. It's only number 5 because my top 4 is definitely better. So, okay, you're number 4.
It's only you said it's only number 5 because
So my other 4, are so good. Like, Ayama's really good.
I got you. I'd be surprised if any of us. But my number 4 is Knights of Magic, right?
See, I was gonna go ahead.
No,
I said I was gonna watch Knights of Magic, but then like I don't know. I don't remember if you said you'd seen the first episode or something, and it wasn't that
okay,
good,
so
or
I did have a kind of. I started out not liking it, but because I'm such a huge mecha fan, I powered through it. I my thoughts on mecha is that almost every show is shit. So anytime I say mecha is shit, just know that it's don't listen. I don't know.
well, I've always known that.
Yes. So uh, Knights of Magic, right? It started right. It started out I disliked it. I disliked how the main character went about things. I dislike how he has the guns, and he uses that as his magic wand, you know. But there's a turning point. I think it's about episode 6 for me, where I just, it clicked and I started to really like it, right? And so the premise of the show is a uh, gunpla enthusiast gets transported to a fantasy world where they have the technology to make giant robots, right?
Hmm.
And he takes the most basic model, and then throughout the entire series, he's constantly improving it, right? And it's constantly showing that he's just doing this because he loves giant robots, right?
Hmm.
And by the last episode, they've opened up the entire world. You know, it's like I said, really great.
Hmm. What was the thing? What do you mean with the guns? You said you didn't like how he had the guns.
So they use magic wands for their spells, right? So they can cast spells, in the giant robots, or they can cast spells on the ground. And
But he came from another world, so he has to
so
use
yeah,
guns.
he's constantly incorporating different types of technology. Like he's the first person to create a new giant robot in like 100 years in that world, and it's like a completely odd design. Like it's completely revolutionary to them, right? But it's something that anybody who knows anything into giant robots, they've seen it 100 times, and he does that constantly, throughout the series. But this particular thing, what really put me off is, besides him being just like this androgynous, main character, just yeah, is he replaces these wands with just like lever pulling shotgun kind of things, and I just didn't like the look of it. It really bothered me.
Hmm.
And he's kind of like flying around, just like in everything like these kinds of things. He's a genius. He's capable. He's an ace pilot on top of being known as this master engineer.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I'll definitely probably watch it now. Like now that you are saying it's a good show.
Like I said, it took like 5 episodes before I got interested in. And also, that's one of the shows that I watched today, that I finished today,
Hmm.
out of the 19 shows I watched already for this.
Yes. Said you had 19 episodes to watch today to finish what you said started watching.
I didn't make the 19 episodes.
Well, I mean, there's always the end of the year for picking like your favorites for the year and stuff.
Right.
There's gonna be seasons from this. I mean, shows from this season that I haven't watched yet that I'll watch.
Yeah.
So my number 4, we've already talked about, and it's Centaur's Life.
I had a feeling.
So we already talked about that show. We said about everything we are gonna say about that one. So we'll just move on to your number 3.
Okay. My number 3 is Rage of Muhammad, Virgin Series, right? But full disclosure, I still have like 5 episodes to go. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the first one too, Rage of Muhammad Genesis. Um, but overall, the kind of synopsis of the story is kind of it's a magic, knights and magic swords, stuff like that, with a kind of I don't want to say steampunk, but that kind of like technology level, not steampunk technology level, but like more advanced technology for knights than what they should have.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Kind of has that aesthetic to it, right?
Mm.
And at the same time, too, there's these different factions, right? There's the angels, there's the humans, and there's the demon factions, right? And just the way they represent the different factions, I really like. And Virgin Souls is about a young girl living in the big city, trying to make her way and send money back to her mom, right? But while doing this, she finds, romance. And every time that her heart beats fast, she turns into a giant dragon.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's kind of based around what's happening with her.
Okay. Kind of like a punchline. Very different. Same but different.
I haven't seen Punchline.
Oh. Punchline is a show where a guy, every time he gets like aroused to a certain point, he could potentially explode and end the world.
Huh. Yeah,
And he lives in a house with a bunch of hot chicks.
I can see the similarities.
So I know it's not, but it just kind of made me think of that.
Okay,
Just
the main character, she's very bubbly, right? But because she turns into a dragon every time she's put in these situations, she has zero experience with men. So there are a lot of guys that make her almost transform. So yeah, I could definitely see the similarities there.
And I think he has like a ghost like that's like possesses him, and he's like constantly trying to get him to that level. It's an interesting show. So that was your number 3, right?
That is my number 3.
Okay, my number 3 is Restaurant to Another World. Man, what a good show. There was not a single episode of this that wasn't great. I mean, I kept wondering, like, is it going to have a main story? Like, every episode, there'd be characters where you'd be like, I'd be fine if you just followed these people around and it was the main story of the show. But never got there, but that was fine. That was fine with me. Every episode of the show was great. I guess it was funny. It had like a charming kind of quality to it. Every character's thing was cool. I don't really know much really to say about the show. I mean, really, near the last episode, they finally got to a point where they were gonna have like a main story, and then you're like, it sucks that it's over. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter that there was really no story or anything. Just every episode of the thing was great. I looked forward to it every week. I loved the opening and ending. There wasn't one thing that was bad about that show.
It got to episode 3, I think, and Yeah.
I would say my favorite customer on the show was this lion, this humanoid lion. And his deal was okay, like basically everybody's in this fantasy world in the show, and different doors appear throughout the world. And if you find one of these doors, you can go through once a week on the day of Seder into this restaurant that's in our world. So the lion finds himself imprisoned and he ends up in like a gladiator arena, and he's in this cell, and they tell him that if he wins enough money in his battles, he can be freed. But in his cell is a door to the restaurant. So we're left to assume, I am anyway, that he fights these battles every week, and instead of ever getting his freedom, he just continuously goes into uses his money in the restaurant and just fights in the gladiator arena the rest of his life. At least that's the way I took it. I don't know. But I mean, there were other great characters in the show. Every character was great. Like, you would be fine with basically any of these characters having their own series with their outside story.
I really liked the waitress. I
Which
think she's half demon, or she is a demon or something.
which one? The horns or the like the first waitress? Oh, that's right. You didn't watch enough of the show to see the second waitress. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, the first one.
Because the second waitress is a dragon. Not the dragon from the first episode. It's a different dragon.
Okay.
But those they do know each other.
See, I did like the dress. She was my second favorite. The dress.
You do see that dragon chick a couple more times though, but she never has like another story. You just see her. The way I thought about it really is it's kind of like you see everybody in the restaurant, and then throughout the show they just tell you the stories about what they're about. Kind of like back in high school when you had to read that like Canterbury Tales book.
Yeah,
And it was about all the people on that like traveling, and they all with all the different jobs, and there was just like tiny little short stories about each person in the caravan. That's what this was kind of like.
I think Muggle summed it up pretty well. He said it's just a very comfy story, comfy end.
Absolutely. So now on to your number two, big number two time.
Number two is, and I'm gonna butcher this, Sir Zurchil, right? Originally, when I had seen it, I thought it was just gonna be like a
Wait, what is it?
Suzuru children.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so when I originally thought of it, saw it, I thought it was just gonna be another teen drama slice of life, right? But it actually is about, I think, like 6 or 7 different couples, how they get together, how they, first steps in their relationship, and each one seems unique and refreshing. I think the most popular pairing that I've seen is the student president and the delinquent, right? And uh, just the how they interplay with each other, I find interesting. And then there's all kinds of different characters. I mean, really good show. It's a very, I guess I'm gonna reuse this, comfy slice of life romance show.
Okay. So that's your number two.
That is my
I didn't see it, so I just have nothing to add.
yeah.
Okay, so now I guess to my number two. A week ago, I was having trouble with the top five, I guess, if I had to make a top five. I don't know what would have been in it. And one and two was very hard for me. I had to think for a long time about what to make one and two. And even if you asked me an hour from now, I might give you a different answer. If you asked me an hour ago, I might give you a different answer. To which one's one and which one's two, I don't know. But a week ago, I would have had trouble with it. And there was a I'd just seen articles about it. I'd never read any of them on the internet for like the whole time it was on. and I didn't watch it. And I thought, you know what? A lot of people are watching that. I have no idea what the fuck it's about. But, you know, a lot of articles are popping up, so maybe I'll check it out. So last week, I finally started watching it. I made plans to be able to finish it by today. I, in fact, was going to watch the last 2 episodes this morning based off the schedule that I had made. But I made it far earlier than that. Far earlier. I could not stop watching this show. So my number 2 is Recreators. Fucking loved it. From beginning to end. It was fucking so good of a show. The action was great. The stories were great. The characters were great. The concept was great. And it was such to me, such an original concept. I mean, there's been kind of reverse, what is it, the isekai, the ISEKAI, you know, like people going into another world, and this is like a reverse with other world coming into ours. There's a lot of those. But I still thought that this concept was just really original. And everything was fucking cool about it. I would, if they made a season 2 to this, I'd be first in line. If they made a series about any of these characters in the show and the worlds that they came from, I'd be first in line. It was just, and the show was just about so many different things. It was about so many different things. There's so many different layers of like depth in this show and all the different ways you could take it. I was excited. I fucking laughed a lot. I was psyched. I guess I gotta say I cried more than once, especially near the end. Just everything about the show was great, and it's got one of my kind of favorite characters for the season too, Blitz. So if anybody's seen it, I fucking loved Blitz. That guy's just my style. If they made the series that guy's from, I would be so psyched to read that.
So, before we go any further, what's it about?
So, Blitz... Oh, okay, no, the show. Blitz, I don't know why I said Blitz, but Blitz is awesome. So, the show is about... something happens, and there's this character, her name is Altair. She's, for the first, 6 or 7 episodes, known as the Military Uniform Princess. So nobody knows where she came from, but she has the power to go into our popular series. So, if it was, our world, it would be, One Piece, Attack on Titan, whatever. But, they're all, fictional series in this. So she has to go into popular media and pull characters out of it into our world and make them real. So it's to understand in this show that all these worlds that get created by manga authors and anime, and all these worlds, that we're actually kind of like gods, and we're creating these actual worlds. These characters exist, and these worlds are being created by us. So different characters keep getting pulled out of different series. So for instance, there's a girl from a fantasy show that kind of also has the kind of mechs. There's this sorcerer chick that gets pulled out of one. She's fucking awesome, Meteora. There's a guy that gets pulled out of a fighting game. He's the last boss from the fighting game. There's a magical girl, which is kind of like a Madoka looking magical girl. She gets pulled out of it. This mecha pilot that's clearly from a Gundam show, he gets pulled out and brings his mech with him. And there's a bunch of other characters too, and it is just a great show. And her plan is to use all these characters and to break the laws of physics inside our world and ultimately destroy ours and all others for motivations that you don't know. But, so the characters throughout the show, they got to meet their gods that created them and everything, and they all kind of got to work together with the creators and the characters and all these different ways to fight back against her. And there's a lot of real concepts with them creating their characters and kind of hating these creators for what they did to them, for things they've done to them in their world, and knows that there's one that did them. One of the villains in the show, Blitz, he's one of the guys that sides with Altair, and he's from a world where he's got he's kind of like a supernatural detective. He's an ex-detective, and him and his partner go around and fight supernatural creatures. Well, there's one time in one of his old chapters where he was forced to kill his daughter. So he's very upset with his creator for doing this to him, and he wants to. He's extremely upset. And there's a lot of stuff like that in it, and all the fight scenes are cool. There's a couple decisions, especially later on, that I question, that are maybe the couple things that stop this show from being number one. I don't know. It's a great show, and everybody should definitely watch it. It's really good. It's just so exciting seeing all these crossover characters fighting each other, like, and everything, and all the. It's really good. So that's my number 2, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that we both have the same number 1.
I mean, you know my number one. So if you want to just go ahead and say your number.
So our number 1 is season 2 of My Hero Academia. And I mean, what's there to say? I mean, it's a great show. It was a great season. It was some of the better stories from the manga going on.
It really was. I was thinking about it too, right? We're gonna cross, the medias here. But I've never been a big fan of Superman. I've never really liked Superman. I think he's too overpowered, right? I was just thinking the other day when I was watching this, All Might is Superman done right. I absolutely love All Might. He might be my favorite anime.
Oh. Well, I mean, we both know he's not my favorite character of the show. We won't start talking about who is, because then we'll get into a whole different show here. But
just like this last episode, where
to be fair, I didn't watch the last episode, but I have read all the manga, so I mean,
okay.
I am aware.
I'm just gonna go ahead and come out, right? So there's a scene where Midori, I was gonna get it, pronounce that name.
Midoriya.
Midoriya, there we go. Midoriya goes up to All Might, right, after everything that's happened. He says, is there ever a time where you can't save everything? And All Might just goes into this, kind of small monologue, right? And it's such a great moment. It is such a great moment where he's talking about, yeah, there are people dying right now that I can't save, but that's the importance of being who I am. And just, I love when it's touched on. I mean, the episode where both Yaku, what's his name again?
Bakugo.
Bakugo and Yuki fight when they're All Might. Just amazing. I love that. I love how he just bosses them fucking around.
He does.
It's such one-sided, and it's such a great character development for both of them.
Well, one of my more favorite episodes with Bakugo and everything was more earlier in the season when it was him and Midoriya and what's his face, the Todoroki, when it was the 3 of them at the end of the race.
Yeah. Oh yeah, how they had the whole thing going on. And I really love that whole line.
So that, I guess, was our number 1. And that was our top 5. I'm sure, and it's kind of the same as number 1, but I imagine at the end of the year, which will be the kind of the next top show, that ours will be very different from each other's. I think there'll be some similarities, but I don't see the number 1 staying the same at the end of the year. So I think that'll be a lot more interesting. And I think our lists will be a lot more varied. But I'm really looking forward to that. Do we got anything else to do, I guess?
I want to go over the shows that we haven't watched this season, but we still plan to. We mentioned it kind of briefly.
Well, you can if we want. I just don't want to stooge myself off. But sort of stooge myself off here and just like I don't want to discredit my top 5 by mentioning shows that people are like, well, shit, he didn't see that, so that's why. I don't know. I just think at the end of the year, if we watch those shows, they can get in the top. And okay, like the gambling show. I didn't watch the gambling one. Okay, I wanted to, I didn't. I don't remember what it's called, but I didn't watch it. So there we go. That's one show I didn't watch. That's probably on a lot of people's top lists and might be on mine if I'd seen it.
The alternate titles for that is Compulsive Gambling.
Yeah. So that's a show that I regret not watching because I think that might be on my top list because I bet it's really good. So.
No, I mean, they not necessarily would even make it. Like, I want to see Gamers.
No, Gamers looked pretty good. I remember the first few episodes of that, seeing clips from it and everything, and I was pretty into it.
Yeah, okay. I'm fine with that one. Yeah, like, as you said, I don't want to jinx it.
But anyway, okay. Well, I guess that's it then for this week. Next week, we will have seen these first episodes, the ones that we do decide to watch. We'll be talking about those. More news talk, and hopefully, whatever new segments we can think of. You never really know what we're going to think of for next week. Hopefully, we'll have Muggle back next week. That'd be nice. But, if he wants to show up, he can. If he doesn't, he won't. Whatever. Hopefully, we'll see him, though, and maybe have some other guests some other time. Anyway, before I ramble on too much, I guess that's going to be it for this week, so see you next time.